Okay. Hey, I am Jeffrey Paul. We are here in Secaucus, New Jersey with Who's Your Band? I'm with my co-host, Sean Morton. Hello, Sean.
Hello, Jeffrey.
And this is our first episode. And the premise of the show is we bring in guests and we want to find out their influences and then eventually who their band is. So our first guest, I am really excited to announce, is our buddy, comedian, Mr. Chris Johnston.
Hey, how's it going?
And
Chris?
cute as a button. Don't forget that.
Well, I try. I'm getting older, but
He is- he is
Well, yeah,
cute
we know
as a
that, but-
button. Yes, he
try
is.
to lotion up.
Chris, man, you are a comedian. What's going on with you, man? Like, how'd you get into comedy? Let's start with that.
Out of high school, I joked, class clown, joked around in high school a bunch. So,
Where'd you grow up?
Linden, Elizabeth area. My family's all from Jersey City, so north central Jersey, depending on what kind of argument you want to get to with that. Linden High School I went to, and then just started. Always had the itch to do it, and then wrote a bunch of horrible jokes and did open mic. And like '99 was the first time I ever did an open mic.
Where did you do that?
Stress Factory open mic.
Ah,
In New Brunswick. And I thought I did really well. I had a bunch of friends there and stuff, and it was a lot of toilet humor. My big hit was a dingle hopper joke that
that's your opener now, right?
yeah, so I just still do it, Little Mermaid type of thing. But there was a special guy in the crowd that was really cheering me on, and that gave me seriously, and he was into it, and that gave me the confidence to keep trying again. And there was Miller Ross Productions at the time, that Dennis Ross that passed, and Joe Miller, Frank, whatever. They ended up bringing me into the city to do a couple spots, and I got paid like $10 to bring a bunch of people, and then realized that it was a little more difficult than when you had a bunch of your friends and you're telling toilet humor jokes in New Jersey, and nobody wants to come to see you in the city. And then stopped for a little while, finished college, and then always had the itch. I got back into it like a couple years later.
And how long have you been doing comedy since?
I mean, that question comes up all the time, and I'm always just like 12, 15 years. I don't know. I guess I've been working for like 12 years, and then you start to see like timeline stuff on Facebook, and you're like, wow, I've been doing this shit a long time.
Because you got a pretty good resume right now in comedy. You're touring with Impractical Jokers, right?
Yep. Yeah, one of the openers. There's a couple guys that rotate as openers. I've been with the Impractical Jokers for a long time, which is amazing. They're doing venues that I never fathomed I would have the opportunity to do.
You're doing big theaters. You're doing cruise ships, right?
They're doing arenas and amphitheaters and cruise ships. So like some of the bands that we might talk about, I see them doing sometimes smaller venues than I'm doing, which is amazing.
It's always humbling when you see you book yourself a gig and you're like, this is fantastic. I sold 60 seats in the middle of Doylestown, Pennsylvania. I'm on top of the world. And you go on Facebook and you see Chris's dumb face at the Prudential Center. That's always
then
great.
I send you a veil. Hey, let me get it.
Yeah, we
it
work
doesn't
together
matter.
again.
I mean, no matter what it is, like if it's a big, like it's a double-edged sword. Like I tell people all the time, because they ask like, what's it like doing an arena? And I'm like, people don't know who I am or care who I am. They're there to see those guys. So for the first 3 minutes of my 12 to 15 minute set, I'm trying to like get them to take their seats, win them over. Then I got like 9 minutes in front of a hot 10,000, 12,000 people. And then it's like, I got to get off stage right now. But then the other side, when you're doing like, you're 60 people, whatever room it is, and you get to do an hour or do whatever you want, work out material, do some crowd work. Like I got to stay pretty,
Are they receptive to you, or are you like the opening band?
No, they're great.
Remember,
They're
you go
great.
to a concert and you see an opening band. Like I remember, like the first concert I
Yeah.
saw was Kiss, and the opening band was Piper. Do you ever remember Piper?
No.
I don't.
Pipe. The lead singer in Piper was Billy Squire.
Right.
Okay.
That was like their claim to fame.
Yeah.
But they were terrible, and nobody was there to see them. Is that what it's like when you open up for like Impractical Jokers?
Initially, it felt like it was, and I kind of had to learn their audience. Their audience didn't seem like it was a normal comedy club going crowd. They're great. They're some of the best fans in the world, but they're fans of their show. They see them, they watch them on TV. They go to their events, and once they started to recognize me and the other couple guys that rotate as openers, then it was amazing that they were excited to see us. We had people reaching out for us, people looking for us after the show. So they do receive you well. Obviously, they keep growing, so new faces keep showing up at the shows, and it's almost like you got a couple of people that are there excited and clapping loud and laughing loud for you, and it's contagious. So then the rest of the crowd's like, all right, I guess if some people give their approval, I'll approve too.
Yeah, people should give Chris Johnston a listen, man. He's a really great comic, man. We were at Greenwich a couple of weeks ago, and he absolutely crushed, man. You were really great job.
It was a fun time. And you did great also. It was great. Yeah,
Thank
it was awesome. But that's the thing is like doing some of the smaller rooms and stuff, you get that more intimate. You could play a little with material. And I speak fast already anyway. So it could kind of like when I really have to pace myself in an arena because it's totally different. The laughs come in waves. Like if I wrote out 15 minutes of material, I'm probably only getting through about 8 of it because, which is a good problem to have. You don't want silence, but the laughs, they just come in kind of waves, a couple split second waves, but it's not what you're used to when you're doing.
It's also hard too when you're at the level that you are and like not that we aren't, but we're all kind of at the same level. And when you have to do it like a certain amount of time, say like, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and you have this arsenal that you want everybody to hear everything, and then you have to chop it down to 20 minutes.
Absolutely.
It's mind blowing because like you're saying to yourself, okay, well, I want to do this, but then that doesn't lead into this, and then you just like, for me, it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall. I'm doing everything I possibly can to try and get as much out of there in 20 minutes, and I'm not. You're right. You talk very fast when you're on stage. I don't. I'm more of a slower storyteller kind of guy. So I find myself speeding up a lot when I do those kind of shows.
Yeah,
too.
I'm bang, bang, bang. I try to throw, and a buddy of ours, KP, always makes fun of me. How many punchlines do you throw into one bit? Like I have to I want a bunch of punches in there. This way, if you watch the set again and you don't, you're like, oh, I didn't catch that punchline the first time. Oh, I didn't catch that. There's always like kind of like an Easter egg in there.
Well, that's what you do. It's peeling the onion. You just keep tagging and tagging it. So what do you got coming up next in your comedy career? What's going on in Chris Johnston's world? Just
pushing. I'm opening for the Jokers New Year's at the Mohegan Sun Arena in Connecticut, which should be awesome. We did it, I think, over the summer, and we did 2 shows there, 10,000 a night. And it was pretty amazing. They were a great crowd, and they have a Frank Pepe's Pizza in the casino. So
yes, they do.
That's pretty awesome.
That.
Yeah.
Because I've worked Mohegan Sun, Jeffrey. That's why.
I've been to Mohegan Sun.
Yeah, you got to be careful. They do a lot of casinos too. You lose money quick. You know that.
Oh, I was just at Hard Rock Atlantic City last week, and I stay in my room for like 22 hours a day.
You almost got to just lock yourself down.
I can gamble, believe me, and it's tough when you're just walking around a casino and like you have the itch, like your wallet starts like getting really hot.
Yeah,
like just take me out of your pants really quick. But you got to control yourself when you're in a casino. I'm a slot machine guy. Like I don't play. I'll do roulette once in a while.
Grandmother?
Yeah, because I like the free drinks, and I could throw like a $20 in there and like sit there and drink like $80 worth of.
He's got a collection of leftover canes that he watches.
Oh,
and he's
great.
Like, oh, she's getting up, she's not taking it.
I can't play slots, man. It's too boring. I'll play 21. I'll play craps.
Yeah.
Even roulette. And if you're playing craps, you could be at the table for hours.
See, Joe Gatto with the Jokers is a huge craps guy. And he usually, whenever we're in a casino, he gets a corner spot and he's great. He's great about like teaching. And I'm just like, I'm too dumb to learn this game. I
could never do it.
I can't get it. I'm a little frugal, I guess. I like to lose my money at my own pace. So I play like Let It Ride, where I'm like, I feel like I could pull.
You don't have Joe Gatto money?
No, I don't got not at all, man. But I play, 21's, it's fun for a little bit, but then they say you play in like 20-minute spurts. So because eventually the odds are, you're going to lose.
Or you should get up and play at another table.
Yeah.
So let's go to the premise of the show now. So we know about you. You're a comedian. You grew up as a comedian. You're the funny guy in Linden. Growing up in Linden, who was your band? Who was your influence? Who was the band that you gravitated to? Who'd you love?
See, it changed a lot through the years. Like when I was a kid, I grew up. I was a huge in middle school. I was into metal, but I had like a hip hop. I was Guns N' Roses, Slayer.
What was the first album you bought? Did you buy?
The first album I ever bought, to be honest, the first one I ever bought when I was a kid was the Monkees. I love the Monkees.
Me too.
My parents,
your first album?
Yeah, my parents were big.
And that was your first album too?
One of my first albums was the Monkees. Yeah.
Wow.
But my first CD, like, I talk about CDs. That's where I really start was Appetite for Destruction.
Guns N' Roses was like some of my first stuff. And then I ended up going through the whole genre, like, like that glam metal, LA Guns, Motley Crue. And then I also like Slayer. And then we would talk about Striper. But I also had a hip hop.
Motley Crue. What was your first Motley Crue?
Girls, probably.
See, I went do you remember like the first album? I think it was Too Fast for Love.
Yeah.
The one with Live Wire?
Yeah, Live Wire,
right.
Yeah.
I caught that later on because I was 5 when it came out. So
yes, I already had a beard and a family.
But I was big into my dad. Like we used to go camping a lot. Now my dad was into music and he had record players and we used to listen to Pink Floyd, Bruce Springsteen I was a huge Bruce Springsteen fan, Bryan Adams, like all that stuff, the Moody Blues, the Doors, all that stuff he used to listen to. So it was genres like that. But when I started to think for myself a little, I was always hip hop and metal, which was going to bring us to where we're going. But I grew up listening to like Slick Rick and everything. And then when Wu-Tang and Rage and all those were coming out, I was huge into that. I was a little kid. I was just still young, middle school. I had like a spiked hair with lines, with a tail. I had like Slayer shirt with Zubaz pants. I was a mess. I had all kinds of Delta Force Nikes with the big tongue, with a Maiden shirt. I like Maiden. But then the rap rock metal genre came out, like, 95 Deftones, Korn, Limp Bizkit were a little after that, and all that stuff started to come out where it was a hybrid. In Linden, I was listening to hip hop and metal. Like I was, in Linden, I was a ginger white kid listening to, everything I could. At that point, it was so diverse.
That stuff goes back even further, I think. You remember Run DMC and Rockbox?
Sure.
And that was Rick Rubin who produced that stuff.
Sure. Even the Beastie Boys.
Right. And that was all right. And that was like music. They were playing like metal with rap. And it was the first time I think we ever heard metal.
Absolutely.
Well, I used to sit and watch like Ricky Rackman Headbangers Ball and watch like Yo MTV Raps. And I would just sit there all day long watching this stuff. Kid Rock, Beastie Boy, all that stuff. And I would just try to tape all my favorite stuff. That was Midway. I'd VHS tape it. And then I had a collection of VHSs of all these videos that I used to love. And like all that stuff was on there, that was the time frame.
It also comes back from our generation too, because you're what, 40?
40, yeah.
Yes, I'm 43. So we kind of grew up in a weird era where, again, I'm from the same era too. I grew up with, my mom was huge into country.
Who did your mom listen to?
I mean, she's old school country. My first concert ever.
My father also.
My first concert ever was July 4th, 1983. It was the Stray Cats, Waylon Jennings, Johnny Cash, and Willie Nelson.
That's amazing, man.
So that's like, nothing's ever going to beat that first concert ever. I have pictures from it, and I remember this concert. Giant Stadium.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember that
Who
concert.
closed it?
Willie.
How old were you?
6.
And you appreciate it?
I remembered it. I remember it being like 100.
Because they were fun.
I didn't remember them, but like I remember seeing Johnny Cash's tour bus. I remember seeing Willie Nelson. And like one of the funniest stories I ever had was I went to a book signing for Willie Nelson. I brought my guitar, and because I have a guitar that gets signed by everybody. And I gave it to him. I go, here's a picture of me. It was July 4th, 1981. It's my first concert. And he looks at it, he goes, where was this? And I go, Giant Stadium. And he looks at me, he goes, no, man, that was 83. And I go, what? He goes, yeah, 81, 82, we were in Texas. He goes, 83 on July 4th, we came up to Jersey. I go, all the weed you smoke, and you remembered a date from 37 years ago. He goes, big show, man. And he signed the guitar and gave it back. It was a great moment.
Who went? Just you and your mom?
I think my grandmother went too. Yeah, but it was, but so that's what I'm saying is like, I grew up in a different generation too. Like I heard all that. And my uncle was my other big influence too. And he was more of the metal classic rock. So I got it from both ends too. But growing up in the same time frame that we had the best of both worlds, having the 80s metal, going into the grunge era, which we totally skipped over too.
Yeah.
The grunge era, then going into that rap, rock, new metal era, we were able to appreciate a lot of different genres too.
See, I think we also grew up in an era, in a time frame where, like, I grew up at the tail end of there was no social media, there was no TV until I grew up listening to what my parents would listen to, and they were my influence. My parents would listen to Pink Floyd. They would listen. Bruce Springsteen was huge.
Did they take you to your first concert also?
My dad brought me to the Moody Blues. It was my first concert ever. Nights in White Satin.
You guys had cool parents.
Yeah,
my parents never took me to a concert.
I remember seeing roach clips around the house.
2 years ago, my mom says to me, I have a concert that I want you to take me to. So like now we'll just buy her one ticket for a show. Because like I don't want to see these country bands over and over and over again. And she goes, there's a show and I want you to come with me. I go, fine. What is it? She goes, Kid Rock. I go, beautiful. Okay, I'm buying 2 tickets for that. Yeah. It was great because it was like, my mom's a little older, but like she appreciates like a lot of younger stuff. We're in the car the other day and I have 10 wins on. She goes, this is bullshit. Put the new Volbeat on. The thing's awesome. I'm like, okay. Like,
so I feel like what about now? Did you follow what your parents were into? Because there was nothing else to really influence you unless, a radio, a transistor radio
I don't
or
think
something.
My mother ever listened to music. My father did. My father played a little guitar and he was a big Johnny Cash guy. So I guess when you're a kid, you kind of rebel against what your parents listened to. So the first concert I ever went to was Kiss. The first album I ever bought was Ted Nugent's Cat Scratch Fever.
That's awesome.
And that's what I was into.
That's cool though.
So I feel like then we had a good influence from our parents, and then technology came out. There was a TV station dedicated to music. Radio stations were playing. Like I started listening to underground hip hop on the Stretch and Bobbito show, and I was taping those. And that's when like Wu-Tang and Biggie and all that stuff first started dropping like singles. And then and MTV was playing like metal and hip hop and everything. And that's where all that stuff really started to hit me. My culture, I would go to Broad Street and Elizabeth and shop for stuff. And Mark Echo was out on Broad Street out of a box selling his first t-shirt designs.
Wow.
And he would give you, I bought like 8 t-shirt designs. I was big into graffiti too. I used to write graffiti.
You a skateboard guy?
I used to skateboard. I was never really good. I was chubby ginger, so I would try to ride them. And then when everybody else was doing cool tricks, I'm like, I could probably break my board doing it all.
I had a skateboard one time. My grandmother bought me. I was like 8 years old, and I was so fat I couldn't do it. I sat on the skateboard. Me and my best friend pushed me down the street.
Again, maybe comedy where comedy poked in.
Just the visual.
Oh, I can remember
chubby,
pushing it down.
Morton sitting on a skateboard.
Just push me. And I remember it was a blue and black skateboard, and I said, I can't do this ever. And I just sat down. I go, "We want to just push me down the street?" And he's giving me one big push. I just held onto the sides
while he's eating chocolate.
I just keep thinking,
it was great.
Eddie Murphy and Trading Places in the beginning. You getting pulled around.
Hysterical. Absolutely hysterical.
I had a pogo stick. Everybody was riding skateboards
I had one of those
and BMX,
too.
so I just thought it'd be funny and hopped around the neighborhood.
I almost killed myself in my room doing that too, with a pogo ball too.
I tried to flee from bullies once on a pogo stick and I realized I should probably just run.
You should have gotten beat with that pogo stick.
Yeah.
Oh,
Pogo
horrible.
stick. So go answer the question now. So who's your band? So after
all that, the first band that I fell in love with, I think, like after all that stuff, there's a lot of bands I fell in love with, but even to this day, it's one of my bands people identify me with was the Deftones. And I think 95, they dropped their first album, Adrenaline. And that was again on the, it was just hip hop.
Little different than what they became. From the first
exactly.
album.
See, that's one of the things is a lot of these bands, I guess the genre would be new metal, hip hop, rap metal. And they were kind of the precursor. You nailed it
before when you said, like when I think of Deftones and, they're not one of my favorites, but I like them. They're okay. Yeah. But I kind of see them more like Korn, Limp Bizkit, bands
I think they kind of paved the way for them, and Korn kind of started a lot of it, I think, and they paved the Rage Against the Machine too, and they paved the way for like the Limp Bizkits and those guys to come out. Yeah, they were all, and they were all in that 90. When did it Rage Against the Machine?
Sounds different.
94, 95.
That's the singer in Deftones. He has that different voice.
He's got a really different voice. He's got a melodic voice. Even if you listen to the lyrics, they're more like if you read the lyrics, they're not the same as like. I loved Limp Bizkit too, and I when it was time, like I don't know what you wore when it was when you were out of school to go get chicks, but I wore a backwards red hat, trimmed my beard like Fred Durst, and that's what I would wear out to go get chicks back then. That was it.
You're killing me.
See, the reason
but the lyrics, do you listen to if you read Limp Bizkit lyrics now, you're like, ugh.
Yeah, it's cheese. It's total cheese. But
the nookie, is that cool?
I mean, I call that like chick rock. You know what I mean? It's like music that you can take like if you're into metal. Now, say if you're into metal now and like your wife or your girlfriend isn't into metal, you play them like Five Finger Death Punch. You play them Godsmack. Yeah. Good bands. They're not breaking any musical boundaries at all. It's very simple music, but it's catchy. The thing about the Deftones is, and I bust my one friend a lot because it's his favorite band too, but they are an amazing band for one reason in my book is that you can't classify them now. They're not new metal. They're not hard rock. They're not rock. They're not metal. They're not alternative. So that's, for me, they have a gigantic, diverse fan base.
They do have a gigantic, what they did is
metal?
No, I would say they're not. Like they had, listen.
Like who's metal?
Like for example, like Adrenaline, their first album, 7 Words is a metal song.
Yeah.
That's a brutal metal song. I've seen pits break out ferociously for that song. Then they have like stuff like Change, which is a very melodic.
Well, that's a complete departure
different vibe
of anything they did, and that's what pretty much.
The first 2 albums were pretty Adrenaline into Around the Fur, which I think was 95. They dropped Adrenaline, and then 97 they dropped Around the Fur, and those albums hit me hard. They were just riff heavy right off the bat, just dun 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 riffs. Every song was another riff into a groove, into a breakdown, into Chino, who at the time had a totally different voice. If you actually went in and read lyrics and tapes like I used to, you're like, wow, these lyrics are like a lot of them. The shade is a tool, a device, a savior. Like they're singing about just everyday life type stuff. Not trying to, get too corny. Like I like Korn a lot too, but you try to listen to it like, hey, come on, chick, come on, honey, you want to listen to this Korn song?
Right.
Ooh, you're like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
The Deftones had their own unique style the whole time, but then those 2 albums really hit hard, and then they turned. Then when White Pony came out, that changed everything. That was a revolutionary album. I think that's where they finally learned how to play music. They learned how to. They just came into their own. They had like riffs into melodic grooves, into like some electronic stuff, and they came into it reminds me, we were talking the other day with somebody, we went to see Tool. I think you went to see Tool also.
Right.
Tool's the same way, whereas Opiate was a good metal rock album, prog rock album. And then once they turned the corner into Lateralis, like Anima was great. And then Lateralis just transformed them into who they are. They found who they were. They're machines. The music they play, the pace they play it at, the tones they play, how they groove together. You can't really.
They're on a different level. They're like
identify with what you can't really put them into a genre. And the same thing with the Deftones, where you can't really put them into a genre. They can't, metal, EDM, rock, like they kind of go into a little bit of everything.
I think when you talk about like when you start comedy, right?
Yeah.
And like there maybe your first year, you're kind of being a comic in the voice of like the comics that
you idolized, right?
I think that's true with music too. Now, if you look at the first two Deftone albums, one of the things I kind of wrote down was like they reminded me a little bit more of like The Cure, Depeche Mode, but like The Cure. Remember the album Disintegration?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, songs like Prayers for Rain. You could hear that. It was like the heady, like melodic but heavy type of sound, or even the album before that, the Kiss, Kiss. I think that was the name of the album. Right.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting point that you make too, that you bring up, because a lot of their covers and a lot of stuff they cover live, and they have a B-side and Rarities album where they cover a lot of stuff. And even if you like look at interviews with the guys, a lot of their influences were The Cure, Duran Duran, Weezer. They covered some Weezer stuff. Sade. Like
what did they cover? I love covers.
There's an album B-sides and Rarities you could look up.
They've done Simple Man by Skinner. Yeah. They've done No Ordinary Love by Sade.
Yeah.
They've done some amazing covers.
Really good covers. They did some Weezer.
And that Sade song that they do, I mean, without sounding corny, it's sexy.
Yeah.
Like it's a sexy cover version too.
From the beginning.
It's it's a same vibe, but like you can go to their shows and they're going to hit you in the teeth with like My Own Summer, and then they can bust into that really slow, jammy kind of like trippy vibe, and your girl's gonna be like, oh, this is really freaking cool,
Yeah.
But that's the thing I love about them is like, I've seen them probably 8 or 10 times.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you've seen them probably 50 times or so, maybe even more.
I've worked with them a bunch too, which is cool.
True.
But yeah, they're the one thing you hit the nail on the head, I think, where it's like coming into your own voice. You could see a young comic, been in a year, 2 years, and you could see, oh, this guy's funny. This guy has a good personality, or a girl. They have a good. They're gonna be funny once they find their own voice.
Right.
And I think those two albums, Adrenaline, and it was good because it was me coming into my own too, kind of figuring out who I was and what I liked out of high school, figuring out my personality. And those albums, you could see they were gritty. Listen to them now, and like the mix was gritty. They weren't as clean as they probably could be.
But also, when you have talent, and it's a band that clearly has talent. Chino, great singer, but if you want to get great, you still have to work. Some people don't work and they fall by the wayside.
Yeah.
This is a band that looked like they worked. And when you hear the change from the first two albums to the third album,
literally the change that once they go into White Pony, and the change is one of the first singles on it. But then every song after,
that's a sexy song too.
That became a sexy, metally rock album. And then Tool's one of my favorite bands too. And for them to get Maynard on it, doing Passenger, which Maynard doesn't do collabs with anybody, like not even with Tool. Sometimes you never think they're going to come out again. It was just that album. You had to really sit back and listen to it a couple times if you were a Deftones fan, because the first two.
Did you like it when it first came out?
I went to at CD World in Menlo Mall. They had a midnight signing. I think it was June 20th. It was whatever year it came out. It was Chino's birthday. It was June 20th. So I remember, and a good buddy of mine. So I went there. It was a line all the way under that parking garage, and it was like a party. They were a listening party outside. We all went, met them, got the album signed. And then I listened to it for probably a week straight. And I'm just like, wow, this is something, I've never heard anything like this. Like at that time, you're still listening to Limp Bizkit. You're still listening to Korn. And you were kind of expecting like another hard, beat you in the face, which Mosh Pit, a lot of heavy riffs, maybe some grooves. And then they dropped this album on you, which you were like, wow. And girls liked it. It was a totally different paradigm of anything that I was ever ready for from them. But I loved it.
And the cool thing about it too is like, we were so used to having those two heavy albums, but the music and the lyrics were so good in White Pony that even like the tough jockey kind of like metal guys had to like take a step back and go, all right, this is still a really good album. Yeah. And it did take them to the next level really, really quick.
Yes. It took them to the next level. I think they knew what they had to, because they had like 4 different album covers. They had CDs that had like an extra song on it. I went out and I had like 7 different of the same CD because there were different album covers. You know, I had bought the record. I bought everything they dropped on it. It was touring wise, it brought them to the next level. They were doing bigger venues. It was a whole different thing. And I think it opened up a lot of different people to try stuff after that, like that too, and inspire. I think it, same thing with Tool, with Lateralis. Like I think both of those albums kind of brought them to the next level, and it kind of pushed each other to be a genreless band, if that's a word. I don't know. What
was the first concert you saw Deftones in?
First concert I ever saw the Deftones in, I think it was the Warped Tour in 97. Warped Tour 97, I went as a fan. And then I have a production concert background too. So I work in the concert industry. I've been working there since 98, and I went in 98, and I think, I don't know if they were on there again or if they did a couple of dates, but I ended up going to see them do a couple. But Warped Tour, I knew them from Adrenaline. I saw they were on a Warped Tour. There were a couple other bands I knew, and that's when it was like a real big punk and skater, like the big skateboard names at the time were there. So I had to go and waited out on the boardwalk in Asbury and went and saw it behind the Berkeley Carteret Hotel. And then the next year I ended up working it, which 98, I don't think they were actually on 90. I think it was like Suicidal Tendencies, they were Suicidal fans. Every interview I read, so they opened me up to checking their Suicidal, and I was behind the times on them. And I think 97 Warped Tour was the first time I saw them.
I don't think I saw them on the Adrenaline tour. I'm almost positive I saw them around the Fur.
Yeah, I graduated high school in 97. So that's when I started getting a little more of my own freedom to go out and do. I think I was 17 at the time. I had my permit license, 18 at the time I had my license. So that summer, I was in August. So yeah, summer, I think I was my first times driving. I had a Honda Prelude I was holding on to since I was 15. Bought from my buddy for like like $500, and I ended up getting my dad dropped the transmission in for me, and that was my car.
Nice. Years ago, I used to do, I worked for about 19 years touring with different bands. And then like when we weren't touring, we do a lot of like local stuff.
Yeah.
So one night I get called into the Brendan Byrne Arena. Okay. And the headliner was Pantera, White Zombie, and Deftones opens the show. Did either of you guys, do you remember that tour?
I drank with Dimebag in the parking lot after that show.
Get out of here.
Yes,
you
I
were
did. I was there. Yeah.
Interesting thing about that show is I don't think Pantera ever played Brendan Byrne again.
No.
Because we worked it and we stayed till about 2. They still stayed there. They stayed until 4 and then trashed the place.
Yeah, it was a brutal show. I mean, that whole era for me too is one of the greatest, musical time periods in my life too. But yeah, I can remember being just hanging out in the parking lot because we used to work at the Giant Stadium at the time, part-time. So we would get employee tickets to go to all the shows. Like I saw Oasis for $2. I saw Smashing Pumpkins for $2 at the arena, and we got tickets for that show. And it was just a brutal, brutal show. And then afterwards, we're hanging out by the employee exit. Dimebag walks out. We're doing Jaeger shots and hit about a half an hour, goes back inside, and we were like, oh shit, we got to drive home. So we were all wrecked. That was one of my stories with Dimebag, but
he's one of the coolest guys.
Did you ever meet?
Yeah.
Deftones
I've worked with him a bunch of times. I do concert production. I worked at the Birch Hill 97, 98, I think was 97, 98 was the first, right out of high school I started working.
They were cool?
The Deftones are great. Yeah, they're real chill. They party backstage. I remember doing them at the Pony one year. It was supposed to be at the convention hall, and they ended up having to move it to the Stone Pony indoors. And they had a trailer out back, and they just were playing Dying Fetus, like blasting it. And they had an after party, and they were just cool, down to earth. It got to the point where I ran into him. Like at first I was like, oh, I was a fanboy out. I got a bunch of stuff signed, all my CDs and everything. And then I would run into him so frequently working events that I became friends with the drummer, friends with we knew the guys.
Was it Stephen Graham, the guitar
Abe
player?
Is the drummer. Steven is the
guitar player, right?
Chi at the time was the bass player. He said sin passed. They were a 4-piece, Chino, and then they adopted Frank as a DJ. Probably during the White Pony album, and then they pulled up this other guy, Sergio.
Now, Chi died after White Pony?
2013.
Yeah, I think he died after White Pony.
That was a really bad car accident.
Really bad car accident. He was in a coma for a really long time. And Chi was great. He was like the gentle, big long dreads. He was kind of spiritual, didn't like to take photos with stuff because of, it would mess up his chi, his energy and stuff like that. Really cool guy, man. He had a poetry album. I remember because it was him, I bought it and like I listened to him like, I guess I'm into poetry now too. I'll be into it if the Deftones are into it, anything they want. But yeah, and then he was in coma for a really long time and he ended up passing, and it was, they didn't know if they were going to continue to band, and then eventually they did. And
his sister was the one that was in the driver of the car too, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
That's kind of heavy to think about that,
When you say that, it brings me back to what happened with Cliff Burton.
Sure.
Yeah. In the bus.
Yeah. I mean, did they change? I mean, again, you would know better than I would, but did they kind of change, because when you lose one member, sometimes it changes the whole dynamic of a band?
I think they were kind of doing changing their own ways a little anyway. The drummer was always pretty chill. He did a lot of groove drumming and stuff. I think Steven was heavy into riffs, and I think Chino did a couple of side projects, the singer, Team Sleep. And then he went into, which was a great side project. I thought.
Wasn't that with the guy from Linkin Park? Team Sleep?
I think you're right.
Yeah. I think he collabed and did some
not
stuff
Chester,
with him.
But the other guy, Mike.
Yeah, I think so.
I think he did a couple, and then he had another.
Crosses.
Crosses was another side project that was pretty cool. But I think, he wanted to get into more melodic type of stuff, which me and my brother were a total sides of the spectrum. We loved Blink-182 also, whereas we saw those guys
coming around this summer, right?
Yeah, they are. Which they're different though, because it's not the same band. Tom is gone, which he went on and did Angels and Airwaves, and it was a totally different thing where, we thought.
But still Trey Barker and the Travis Barker.
Travis and Mark, and they got the guy from Alkaline Trio singing with them. But we were scared, like in that band, that, oh man, we hope Chino comes back to the Deftones. We don't want to see. And the Deftones always seem to come back around. And that's the one thing I like too, is they never really rose to fame in that big explosion of the rap rock, rap metal.
I'm just going to ask you that. Why?
I don't know. I think because they stayed true to who they wanted to be. They didn't cross over and become full throttle. They were kind of pioneers.
Did Korn do that?
No, Korn was playing arenas at that point.
Korn was the biggest one at the time. Korn and Limp Bizkit were the biggest. And I think Limp Bizkit started to lose who they were. They started to fall apart, internal turmoil.
Like Faith and, that
was one of their first.
Right, but they became like more like the MTV.
They were a little more sticky.
A lot more sticky.
That's great. That's a great adjective for that.
A lot more sticky. He ended up sticking to the red hat. He stuck to the,
You got to
commercial. He became so commercial.
You start doing Behind Blue Eyes by The Who. You're like, all right, I think this band's kind of done. But yeah, I think the Deftones are. I liken Deftones a lot to Seven Dust, where they're a huge band.
That's a good
to their core.
Yeah.
But like Seven Dust to me can blow any band out of the water, but they never made it to like that arena headlining level. Like Godsmack, we were talking about that off the air. Godsmack is not the most musically talented band, but they just had something about it that just made them skyrocket from the first album.
You also need that single. You need that something to get that little commercial.
Yeah, I think they shied away from commercialism. They never wanted to be commercial. They didn't change. Once everybody was wearing the Adidas track jackets and the Gazelles again, they kind of steered away from it again. They had their own LA rock vibe. They did their own thing. Korn did too, but Korn. I love Korn, but they were kind of when you listen to them a little more, they were a little corny,
Sure.
Whereas Deftones, they had
a little bit more crossover appeal than I think the Deftones has.
Yes, they did. They had a more commercial crossover
they
appeal.
appeal to the masses more than the Deftones.
But I think it just shows longevity. Like a lot of times you sprint towards the finish line and you burn out. Whereas Deftones, they still do 5,000-6,000 cap venues. Everybody else kind of fizzled out.
If you give me the option of seeing Korn or the Deftones on the same night, I'm going to the Deftones.
Yeah.
Because I've seen Korn so many times. How many times can you hear Blind? How many times can you hear Adidas? But like, there's not a lot of substance behind the songs.
When it's forced too. Like I've seen Korn at one of the venues I work. Korn came out, and I think there were 3 songs in before Fieldy walked out and held his hands up and was like, "What the hell, man?" He was there with 2 chicks, and nobody even really noticed or cared that he wasn't there. They're like, "Fuck him if he ain't gonna be here, and we're just gonna go out." And I was like, everybody was looking around. And they're like, "Where's Fieldy?" And I'm like, "I don't know. He works for you, doesn't he? I don't work for you guys." Whereas you still see the Deftones are like a family. They just, they had a Dia de los Deftones, a Day of the Deftones in California, like a little mini festival they did. And you just feel like they're still, they're still doing what they love because they love it, not because it's a paycheck. Yeah, and they're going to do it at their own pace.
Sean touched on the band for a second. I think about this band a lot though. Seven Dust.
Mhm.
Okay, like that's a band like they never had that one.
You know,
Big
they had the first album has 3 classic songs,
Yeah.
and like it's 22 years old now. It came out in
Yeah.
'97, and
Bitch.
you can hear "Bitch," "Black," "Too Close to Hate," and then you have a couple songs off of like the next 2 or 3 albums. But after like their 4th album, they really don't have a hit, and they're still continuously putting out solid records.
Yeah.
Are they still managed by JJ French?
I don't know if
they.
I don't know if
They
there's.
might be.
I don't think they because for a while they were on TVT Records and they were managed by Creed. Creed's
That's where I
managers.
saw them. I was in Hartford, and they opened up for Creed.
Yeah. They're I mean, I know those guys personally. They're great guys. I grew up, I used to work them opening for people or doing their own shows at Convention Hall, and they used to come in and watch me doing my homework for college and stuff like that. Lejon and Morgan's a big Yankee fan, so we became pretty good pals over the years of working with them. And they're another band that always solid. They bang riff heavy rock. If you can't bob your head to like some Deftones and some Seven Dust songs, I don't think you have a pulse.
No, you really don't.
And they've grown. Like their albums have progressively, like when Angel's Son came out for the singer from Snot that passed.
Right.
You just saw them grow musically, find their own voice, and continue to learn their instruments, find better producers to really make their sound. Like their albums, I think have grown and have gotten.
They're not so much commercial, but they're musically better.
Musically, I mean, again, the first album, Bitch, like same thing as the Deftones. The first 2 albums had some killer songs that the riffs were heavy, but you could tell that they've become better musicians. Like Beastie Boys, same thing. They wrote booty rhymes that hit hard, and Paul's Boutique, they did a bunch of samples, and then they came out and they figured if we're going to continue to do this, we got to actually learn how to play music and write some riffs.
They
and
came
write
out
some
with
music.
the album with Sabotage.
Yeah.
Communication.
Yeah.
One of the best concert experiences I ever saw was the Beastie Boys at Continental Arena. They were doing In the Round.
Yeah,
So
I was at that
spinning
one.
around.
Intergalactic album.
And then Biz Markie out to sing Benny and the
Benny
Jets.
and the Jets.
Oh wow!
And
Tribe
it
Called
was-
Quest opened that too.
Yeah, one of my favorite hip hop bands
Yeah.
of all time. We actually went to see them. I guess it was their last show ever at MSG a couple years ago. They were opening up for Kanye West, so I had to actually buy a ticket for Kanye West to go see the Tribe Called Quest. We rocked out. As soon as the last note was over, out the door.
See,
and
I
about
didn't even
3,000 or
stay.
4,000 people following us too, because only people who came to see them.
I went to see that show too. It was the company that I worked for at the time was the promoter for it, so they gave us tickets, but we were behind like the giant Pride Rock type of thing that he had with the moon for Kanye. So we got to see him kind of behind the stage, but Busta Rhymes came out at the Garden and everything. It was, I not for nothing, I kind of just started listening to Kanye again, and I'm like, wow, some of his first stuff was pretty. It was pretty unique and revolutionary for the music that it was at the time.
Well, this interview is over. Anyway,
But speaking of Tribe Called Quest, what do you guys think about Prophets of Rage?
don't like them.
I never really tried to get into them. I mean, I don't know. It just who's singing on that? That was Be Real with the Rage
Be Real and
Against the
Chuck
Machine.
T.
And
Yeah.
Chuck D from Public Enemy.
It's trying to grab 2 different sides of the coin. Like you're trying to get the rap people, you're trying to get the hip hop people, you're trying to get the whatever genre you want to get called rage. I really don't even know what they are. But Rage is coming back. I mean, that's the thing. They already announced 5 shows.
Are they playing in this area?
Right now they aren't, but I mean, I would guarantee they're going to do like Governor's Ball or something.
They'll probably do something big. They're probably going to end up doing Coachella or something huge.
Well, they're doing
They are
Coachella,
doing
and then they're going to do like the Governor's
But I didn't
Ball.
hear anything about in this area.
No, it's
We're
5
doing this in
shows out in
Jersey.
Arizona.
Yeah, they're not going to
California.
not do
You can't.
East Coast.
You can't not
the
do
demand's
this
going to be
area.
too high.
That was still to this day the craziest show I ever went to.
See, I
was
never
Wu-Tang Clan and Rage Against the Machine.
Interesting story. I worked that show.
Did you?
Beastie Boys are backstage, and so was Sean Lennon. And my friend Fred Jarrell, who is right now Bruce Springsteen's road manager, just had his first baby. And his spot was supposed to be right in front of in the pit, right in front of the stage. And I was like, Fred, you want me to switch? You know, because I had the cake job. I was backstage in the dressing room with Sean Lennon. And he's like, okay. So I'm in the middle. And do you remember at that Rage show what happened to Zach?
Yeah, he broke his ankle.
He broke it. He jumps up about 20 minutes into the set and breaks his ankle. And we think we're going to lose the crowd. I almost committed a homicide that night. Because remember, on the floor, people were crowd surfing.
Yeah.
And you were allowed to do that
Yeah.
as long as you didn't kick. And we're telling this guy, don't kick. And he's kicking and he's annoying everybody. He kicks me in the face. Now, I don't know if you've ever been hit
So that's
in
what
the
happened.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever been hit in the face.
Yeah.
Okay. If you've been hit in the face, you have one or two instincts. You fight or you flee. And I grabbed this guy and I went to fucking town on him. Okay. We threw the guy out. And you're afraid that the crowd is going to go against you because you're being aggressive, but they totally got it. There was a guy who was like you. I mean, big guy, and this guy was just like, he was kicking and he was kicking him.
That was me.
Okay. And the guy is just standing there, right? Finally, the guy with everything he has takes his fist, punches the guy in the back, and you just see the guy go up. He was a real, just didn't get it.
Yeah.
Everybody else was really cool.
The thing about that show for me was I was on the rail. Like, it was all general mission on the floor. I was on the rail for Wu-Tang.
And the house and the security, the house security lost the house.
Wu-Tang socks on.
Wu-Tang was on, and they were great. Now, I'm not a huge rap fan, but I appreciate it, and they were really good. And, they have the break, and then Rage comes on. And it was definitely the mixture of the, let's just say, demographics.
Yeah.
Because Rage comes on, and people are moshing, and they're beating the shit out of each other. And I guess Wu-Tang's demo was kind of saying, oh, this looks cool. And they don't know the mosh pit etiquette.
Yeah.
They're just swinging and punching. So I went from the rail.
Where were you?
I was on the rail for Wu-Tang. And then as soon as Rage came on, within a song and a half, I got pushed all the way to the back.
Everybody was coming from this.
It was horrible.
They just lost. That's why they lost the house.
I knew people who worked there, and I was with two friends of mine at the time, and one got lost. We lost him completely. And I just said, look, I need to get as far the fuck away from this floor as possible.
You had to go protect your neck if you will.
It was a crazy scene, man.
It's a Wu-Tang song.
But so I wound up going all the way to the top of it.
I know, I'm almost out of here.
I went all the way to the top of the second level, and those were high seats at the time. But I sat back, I enjoyed it. And then it was just chaos. People ripping the chairs out.
But remember, there was also they had to take a break, for Zach, and you didn't know if he was coming back or not. He
was that supposed to be two shows? Because I remember missing
no
Rage. I never got to see Rage live. And
no,
I always regretted it.
It was one night, and I am almost positive.
Yeah, it was one night.
It was,
and it was right after Evil Empire.
Was it a Friday night?
I think it was a Friday night. It was Evil Empire was the album. It wasn't even Battle of Los Angeles at that point. So they were really
because I love Wu-Tang. I grew up with them also, but I wanted to see that show so bad, and I missed out. And I remember hearing about the chaos that ensued, and like you just said, the mosh pit etiquette. Like there is a lot of people that go into these events, the metal events, or new metal, or any of this stuff, the rap rock. There is mosh pit etiquette. Like
sure.
The first time I ever went to a mosh pit was during a Pantera show. I think it was at Hammerstein years ago. Soulfly might have been opening, and or it might have been at Roseline. I don't remember. And I went into a pit, and I just saw people were like kicking and picking up the change and doing all these crazy moves. And I did this. I just punched somebody square in the face. And then I remember getting choked out, and everybody started booing me. And then they like pushed me to the ground and pushed me out. And I'm like, what happened? I thought that's what you're supposed to do. And then I learned that no, those are actual dance moves.
We saw Pantera 5 times in 8 days on the Great Southern Trendkill tour.
Yeah.
And at Roseland, we were all the way in the back, and we had our own little pit. So there was about 8 of us, and I'll never forget my friends coming out with ripped shirts, bloody. I think I came out the least scathed, and I had like a cut on my face and a ripped shirt. We're walking back to Port Authority, and it's like the second to last bus going back to Jersey City, and we're all waiting. And here's 8 degenerates walking with ripped Metallica, Pantera shirts, bleeding all over the place. The entire line for the bus moved. We had the entire bus to ourselves back to Jersey City. They were afraid to get back on the bus with us.
Explain it. How was that enjoyable?
When you're young and you're dumb and you're full of aggression for reasons.
But you still do it.
No, I stay back. No,
when that music, when those riffs kick in and you're banging around your head a little, and you had a couple drinks, and when everybody's doing it in unison, I mean, it is like almost like an orchestrated. Like you stand back and you're a spectator and you watch, and you see people doing their moves and they're dancing, and they're kicking, and they're doing stuff, and then eventually, if you jump in, I used to crowd surf a lot. Like you just get in the vibe. So I could totally see like Wu-Tang fans at the time that were the different demographic of people coming in with like fresh Timbs.
That's a great observation. See, I didn't have that from my point of view. I was just like, in front, you had to make sure that everybody was okay, and that we didn't like lose the front of where we were.
And you did lose the front.
Oh, no, we didn't.
No, let me tell you. I'm saying me. I was in the front. You lost the front. It was bad. I'll never forget to the day I die. Even
and
now.
That was in the summertime. I remember we were giving out water.
20 years later, me and my friends still say, the best concert we ever went to and the most dangerous concert we ever went to.
That was dangerous, 100%. The only other time I saw something similar to that was I was working Madison Square Garden, Beastie Boys in the Round.
That was the same tour that we were talking about. Yeah,
right.
Not in New York City. We went to the Continental, not together, but yeah, I remember being at the Continental Arena for that one too. I didn't think that one was dangerous. I mean, the music
at Madison Square Garden.
No, we were
No, I'm talking about when I watched when I was there. You talk about losing the house, and you have to get because in Jersey they had state police come in,
right?
Yeah,
to kind of like break everybody up.
So we produced a couple of at MetLife Stadium and Giant Stadium, a couple of the Hot 97 Summer Jams, and almost lost the house every single time. Those were
that's too bad.
Tough shows.
well, you know what it is too. It's like when you're a fan of the band, you're a fan of the genre, and you grow up in it, you kind of understand. Like I said, the etiquette. You understand the protocol. You know what's going to happen. Somebody falls, you pick them up.
Pick them up. Yeah, right? There's protocol.
But when you have outsiders who might know one song, so say if you know the Beastie Boys and you hear Sabotage, now all of a sudden you think every song is like Sabotage.
Yeah.
When they're playing something more chill, and you still have these assholes who are coming around throwing hips on you and throwing forearms in your face, they don't get that. So like when you go to a show like, just an example, a really hard band like Propane or Soulfly, you're going to go there. If I'm me, like I'm 43, I'm old, I'm fat, my bones are aching, I'm standing in the back because I know what's going to happen at these shows. But a younger me would be in there knowing full throttle, I'm going to get hit in the face, I'm going to get punched in the chest, I'm going to get my knees taken out. But these people who are just casual fans.
It sounds like a football game.
It really was. But these casual fans don't get that because they just know like the one song.
Well, the thing is too, like the bands you just mentioned, the Propanes and stuff, those are for like the fans that are deep into the genre. You go to the club, you see them. It's like a couple hundred people to a couple thousand people. Like once they get that commercial success and like your girl's into it. Like I remember one of the rougher shows that I went to, believe it or not, was 2 nights at Continental Arena, Limp Bizkit with like, I think Eminem opened up and then Method Man and Redman.
That's a great show.
It's a great show, but it's Exhibit, and it's one of those ones that you bring your girl, and the next thing you know, everybody's like moshing, and you're like trying to hold on. You're trying to hold on to your girl in a general admission pit, and you're getting mad and fighting people trying to defend her. And you see, I saw all these like muscle dudes that just were into Limp Bizkit's big, Eminem's got a song like Method Man and Redman, and I saw so many fights just breaking out over stuff like that. One of the worst fights, this just popped in my mind, that I ever saw was a Justin Timberlake concert that we did at one of my the Starland, a club venue. We did Justin Timberlake, and just the girl fights. So people, it's a 2,000 cap general admission, no seats. Everybody's stepping on each other's toes, literally in these heels, and just the girls brawling and fighting each other, and the boyfriends fighting with other boyfriends because your girl stepped in a spot, and you're like, this is what this is. You're in a rock club right now with the show.
They don't get it.
So let me ask you, who's going to see Deftones now? Like, because Sean made me think of something. He said, 43-year-old Sean, is not moshing anymore. Is there a new generation? Are there 20-year-olds that are going out to see Deftones? Are they discovering Deftones music?
I don't know that there's 20-year-olds. I think there's enough people from the genre. Like I feel like a lot of people have
seen change. Has the concert changed?
Yeah, everybody's kind of grown up. Everybody's grown up. It's a little less active. I think it also, their music is a little less active. I think the bands that, like me as a Deftones fan, like the bands that we all listen to in that time frame have either fizzled out or they kind of you actually listen to the lyrics now and they've shown their true colors and you're like, it's kind of corny. I'll listen to it for nostalgic purposes, but I don't know if I'm going to go see it. Like I feel like I love the Deftones. I'll love Tool. Like Queens of the Stone Age is another band. Like it's rock, it's heavy, it's riff heavy, but they're actual musicians and the music has melodic downtime where you're not going to be just fighting and pitting the entire time. Nothing Face was a band. The singer died. Another band, melodic,
absolutely
ahead of their time, instrument, the heavy riffs with actual singing and just talent. They were just talent.
So there's certain bands, like I think you're right though. I think if you go to a Deftones show now, you're going to see more of our age demo, maybe 10 years younger. There's only certain bands though that will cross over to have 4 and 5 generations. You have like your Kiss, your Metallica, Iron Maiden. I just saw Slayer 3 weeks ago at the Garden.
Another one.
And there were 10-year-old kids there, obviously because their parents brought them. But the kids were singing the songs. So like there's a different level of crossover. I don't think Deftones are at that level, but they have steady fans and they have consistency and they have the fans who are going to come out and still see
they have that
them.
non-commercial sellout vibe where if you're going to go see one genre of music this year that like them, that's the band that you're going to see. They've evolved too, and you've evolved with them.
They remind me like of Incubus too. Like Incubus is the same kind of vibe.
And they used to tour together. I've seen them play together many times.
And you see that too. You don't see a lot of 10, 12-year-old kids at an Incubus show. You see guys that are our age. You see a lot of girls who are our age.
They were also a little melodic too.
They're very melodic too. Yeah. They didn't get too heavy.
No,
they started out heavy, like jam band, funky heavy.
Yeah.
And then they kind of transpired into more melodic. They're a little more commercial mainstream than the Deftones.
I agree.
So before we wrap this up, where do you see the Deftones going, man? Like what's next for them? What, you know, you're going to go see them again? Do they have anything coming out?
I think anytime that they're around, I'll try to go see them. I mean, I don't see them blowing up or getting any bigger than what they currently are. I don't see them wanting to do that either.
There's no format for this music anymore, really.
Well, I think that once this fizzles out, like I was saying, you could see, they say history repeats itself, and you see genres of stuff coming back out again. And you know, like you mentioned off air, Greta Van Fleet is trying to reinvent, you know, the Led Zeppelin vibe. I can't see bands coming out like that anymore.
But look at my point was when we were talking about this was what band brings in like the high school kid, the young, they listen to like just like such pop, like the big thing is K-pop. But so who's going to be the rock band? Is it going to be like Greta Van Fleet, a band like Ghost, someone like that who may have some type of? I mean,
success. Ghost had some really good commercial success to be something.
Sure.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Another commercial rock band that would be like a Ozfest type headliner if they did something like this time would be like a Five Finger Death Punch or Volbeat.
Right. They're great. Five Finger
in this moment or stuff like that have a shtick. But I think the big stuff that the kids like teenagers and college kids are listening to now is just a hybrid, like, you know, EDM, which has like and hip hop with EDM riffs and like I don't think there's any real rock that's coming out and hitting hard.
No, there really isn't. Like I always say, who's the person that I'm going to be starstruck in front of? Because I don't get starstruck. Like I met Joan Jett about 7 years ago.
Yeah.
That's a rock star.
And again, it brings you back to the stuff that's hitting now. I think everything's a throwback now, is nostalgia. Everybody's infatuated with the 80s. Everything is, you know, Stranger Things is on TV. Everybody's movies are throwing retro stuff. Everybody's shooting on like 9mm cameras. And like, you know, people are trying to record with that same, like an old, tape instead of doing, you know, digital just for that old vibe. I think everybody's trying to get a retro vibe, like retro stuff. The Jordan 1s are back. Everybody's hitting hard on retro.
It's because the stuff was good.
Yeah, it was good. I think nostalgia is back. People reinventing themselves to nostalgia.
I agree that 100%. You know, and there's, I saw when I traveled and saw the Foo Fighters a lot about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And you know, you see the rock fans, you see the chicks there, but you also see the younger people. And I made the correlation that the younger ones like Nirvana. And they were into Nirvana. And because of Nirvana, they actually found the Foo Fighters knowing Dave Grohl was part of them.
Yeah.
So to me, like he's one of the last great rock stars.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because he loves all genres, plays every instrument, loves music, promotes it. And he just has that dude, the guy played on a throne for 3.5 hours.
When anybody else would cancel the tour, yeah.
He's on a different level. But yeah, it's going to be very hard to find that next. Is Greta Van Fleet that?
No,
they're
actually
not.
But that's what scares me is like after the Foo Fighters, who's the next stadium arena act?
I don't know. Maybe they haven't come out yet. Like, and I feel
yet.
like kids are smart. Like they'd go through the same phases that we all went through, where they'll fizzle out. Like you'll like something for a little while, and you'll see all the littles and all this stuff. The hip hop that is garbage. Not that hip hop's garbage. I'm saying that the hip hop guys, the little this and little that are garbage. And then there's the diamond in the rough that they'll follow because that person will reinvent them. Post Malone, he'll reinvent himself.
I'm a gigantic Post Malone fan, and you would never think that if you ever saw my iPad or my iPhone, because again, it's a different vibe.
Yeah,
it's chill. There's musical talent behind it, and the guy's influences are rock and metal too. And it pops out once in a while. I mean, he just did a song with Ozzy on his new album, and he did a song on Ozzy's new album too. Phenomenal shit.
Could a band like Bad Wolves ever catch a break and anything happen?
I mean, it's funny because I know we know those guys from God Forbid, like they were a rock, and then Tommy Vext was in Vexed
yeah.
from Staten Island. I don't know. I don't think. I mean, who are they supporting right now? Because they're supporting Five Finger Death Punch.
Five Finger, yeah.
Because he was singing for Five Finger. I mean, I think that they'll follow in Five Fingers limelight for a little bit and catch some followers. I don't know that they're gonna blow up.
What's that band? I know they just had a headlining tour. Righteous Brothers, something like that.
The Righteous Brothers?
No, not the Righteous Brothers.
Fuck.
Oh, I'm just trying
you
to
stroking on me?
Yeah, the Righteous.
No.
Earth, Wind, and Fire too.
I can't remember this band. They've been around for a number of years, about 10 years or so.
I have no idea.
They play Coney Island in September.
I don't know.
I have no idea who you're talking about.
Oh, why can't I remember this band's name? I'll remember.
So what was the point behind?
The point is they're a band that wound up playing clubs. Now they're playing 3,000 to 4,000 seat arenas. Could they take the next step?
I mean, everybody kind of blows up, but it's the longevity that like I remember Slayer playing Starland with 2,000 people. Like they came to it. They dropped. They were huge. They dropped off, and then because of the nostalgia, because of people just their appreciation and the desire for good shit. Like they're the best thrash.
To it.
That's the top thrash metal band. You want to watch the top, then that's why they're big again.
And I'm not a huge Slayer fan, but I appreciate seeing them control 18,000 people.
Yeah,
at
Wu-Tang Clan, they fell off and they were kind of doing clubs and stuff, and now they're huge again. They're doing arenas and everything again.
It goes back to what you guys are saying about nostalgia.
Everybody looks, you're looking through everything. Everybody tries to find what's underground. Like I remember going through vintage vinyl and seeing a Slipknot album, and I'm like, oh, I got to check this out. And then I listened to it. I'm like, these guys are going to be big.
See, that hurt rock also. Is no more record stores really, because remember when you would find Maiden and you would see like the picture of Eddie on it, and the album cover would look really cool and you check it out, and now it's like I
used to go to Vintage Vinyl and then CD World and just sift through all the used stuff and just buy as many used CDs as I can.
I love playing Greenwich. They have that record store right on Bleecker.
If anybody listening, if you don't get a chance, go to a record store and actually spend some time. Newberry Comics in Boston, there's some great record stores still. Support them because that's the last frontier, man. Otherwise, you're gonna have Spotify telling you what you should listen to.
I got 700 vinyl at home.
The band was Rival's Sons.
Yeah.
Rivals. I know
I can't get it. And Black Sabbath gave them the ultimate badge. They were like, this is the next Black Sabbath. I'm like, whoa, you need to slow down. They're always on the cusp. Like I'll hear a song on the radio, I'm like, that's pretty good. And then I hear who it is. I'm like, kind of ruined it for me. It's just if I don't know who they are, I might like.
Are they anybody in the band that used to be with?
No, they're just an original band. Sabbath took them on tour to open up their 13 tour.
Okay.
I think Stone Sour took them out a couple times too.
They were great with Stone.
I think Stone Sour for me might be the only close band that is right on the edge of making it to that stadium level. If not stadium, arena level.
I can't see them. I can't see it. I think that Slipknot's always going to be who Corey is. And I just can't see that many people latching on to a Stone. I think there'll be a sellout Starland, maybe go to the 3,500 cap.
They sold out PNC 2 years ago.
Who else on the show?
They were the headliner.
Who else was on?
It had to be a great support act.
I don't remember. It was somebody big.
Yeah.
But
that's the thing with a lot of these rock acts.
You know what I thought was
a lot
growing?
of them can't do it by themselves.
When you mentioned the Prophets of Rage, I don't like a lot of the collabs of crossover, but Audio Slave was one of my favorite bands.
They're great.
And I thought that they would have been the next arena type of thing had they stayed together.
Was there a commitment really to that band though?
I don't know.
Or you always got the feeling that Chris Cornell was going to go back to Soundgarden.
You would always got the feeling there was a commitment, I think, just because the people wanted it so bad. Like that first album, and then just that album made me watch that movie with Tom Cruise and Jamie Foxx, where Tom Cruise is a hitman and Jamie Foxx is the cab driver, and the whole soundtrack was basically Audio Slave. Yeah. And both Audio Slave albums I thought were amazing.
They were great. They really were. But again, it was taking the best parts of two bands,
two genres and two bands,
putting them into one big band, and then making their own sound,
which is totally rare.
That was rare, very good.
We worked who was it? Velvet Revolver, and that was another one that I loved. Huge. That first album was amazing, and you don't see a lot of. And I thought that they could have been another band that could have been on the cusp of doing arenas and stuff.
There's no place for these guys to get exposure. You hear them on Sirius XM, but on regular mainstream radio, because not everybody has
regular radio.
Well, that's the thing is there was one you watched MTV, you had Sirius XM.
Did you guys grow up listening to rock stations?
Yes,
sure.
I had rock stations. We used to go to the DFP, Dysfunctional Family Picnic.
Oh my God, yeah.
on-air DJs at rock stations were celebrities themselves,
92.3,
Booker and all these guys.
K-Rock,
yeah, K-Rock. You would go there, and those guys were just as big as the artists sometimes. Whereas
You
now
don't have that anymore.
there's
there's a couple on satellite that are pretty big, but otherwise
it's so
regular
splayed.
radio,
There's
really
so
isn't.
much. There's so many different ways to get your content now that it doesn't force anybody down that streamline.
I think it's actually very good if you think about it, because I'm a big proponent. I used to steal music. Everybody did.
What,
Napster.
LimeWire?
Like all that stuff. Yeah, I used to. Now I don't. I don't do that anymore. I will buy records.
Yeah, it's because you want people to buy your shit too.
Well, that's part of it, sure. I mean, when you start realizing when you're an artist, like you're putting your time and your effort into your art, you want people to pay for it. I don't have anything on YouTube. I have very, very few clips on YouTube for that one reason, because it's so easy for somebody to stay home and say, I'll just sit on my couch. I'll watch Sean for an hour on YouTube. Well, no, I want you to go out there and just pay $10 and we're going to go and give you a great show.
But that's such a double-edged sword. I'm in the same boat as you. I'm old school. Brett Ernst, he was in Cobra Kai. He's a comic out of LA. Great guy, hilarious. He told me, he's like, you got to get out of that mind frame, because I never wanted to put stuff on YouTube. One, I'm always worried about people stealing my material. I've had a lot of
You
material
don't have to
stolen.
do stand-up. You can do.
Well, that's the thing. You got to. I was never real skitty, improv-y. Like I'll post crowd work or something seasonal or something that's kind of show specific that I probably won't do again, but I don't want people to steal, and I don't want to let the cat out of the bag. I want you to come to the show. But nowadays, the way you're promoting your show is people want to see your content before. There's so much to choose from.
It is a double-edged sword.
There's you got to put something out there, I guess. I don't know.
Well, guys, this was a great.
I agree. Great. We popped our cherry.
Yeah, really.
I had a great time. I hope if everybody else bails on you, let me come back.
No, you're done.
We've had enough.
I got one strike left.
We love you, but so Chris, plug what's going on. What you got coming up for the rest of the year?
I got a couple local shows. Everything is at Chris J Comedy. All my social media, check me out: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Everything is at Chris J Comedy. The name is Chris Johnston with a T. I'll do a joke about it at the show, so you remember it's not Johnson or John Stone. And my websites are chrisjcomedy.com and chrisjcomedy.net. Net for some reason works better if you're using a mobile phone. I don't know why. But that's it. Hopefully I'll see all y'all at a show.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming in. How about you, Sean? What you got going on? It's working.
Yeah, a lot of stuff. SeanMortonComedy.com. Doing my first cruise, first week in March, Norwegian Escape. So that's going to be interesting.
Great
interesting stuff. So just everything. SeanMortonComedy.com has everything. All my links to my social media.
All right, cool. What do you got going on? Rockwell's this week.
I'm there in 14th.
Nice. I tried to get booked there. I can't.
13th, 14th, I'm up headlining at Rob's Comedy Playhouse in Buffalo. Have you guys ever been there?
No.
First time up there
Nice.
too. And Wisecrack is on the 28th.
Awesome.
Very
So
cool.
yeah, so things are going good. Guys, thank you so much for
That's been great.
The first episode
Yeah.
of Who's
man.
Your Band?
Yeah, that's really cool. And Sean and I will be doing this, and you'll hear a lot more. And we'll keep in touch with everybody. All right, thank you, everyone.
All right,
Good
everybody.
night.
Thank you.
Later.